Hi, this is Myrna, formerly Joan Jones. And before I read Esther 5, I wanted to give you some information about the background of it. Because, like I said, I had a real problem with this book. Like, why is this book so popular when it seems to really just be telling you about how women, even queens, have no real power? But the book, I think, is way more important than that. At least that's what I drew from this particular article. Now, this is not an advertisement for this blog or anything. I have admitted I will go anywhere for information. So, I'm going to read part of it to you, and I've made a point of including all the information. If anybody, it's all here. That way I don't have to pin it to anything. If anyone is interested, you can look and see where everything is. Okay, the title of the article is The True Dimensions of the Mordecai vs. Haman Conflict in the Book of Esther. It only takes a cursory glance at the Book of Esther to discover the main theme. There is an ongoing confrontation between two of the main characters, Mordecai the Jew and Haman the Amalekite. The struggle runs through chapter after chapter until one of them is completely eliminated from the scene. A deeper examination of the text leads us to the insight that this was not a confrontation between two individuals, excuse me, but between the doctrines represented by the two combatants. The life of each of these antagonists, Mordecai and Haman, was the antithesis of his opponent's ideals. Who was Haman the Agagite? Mordecai reveals us something of his background indirectly when he informs Hatak of recent events and asks him to report to Esther, and Mordecai related to him all that happened to him. The sages note Mordecai's use of the Hebrew phrase karahu, literally happened to him, Esther 4:7. They take this as an allusion to a verse in the book of Deuteronomy describing an earlier conflict that took place thousands of years previously after the exodus from Egypt. At that time, the nation of Amalek sent its forces a great distance into the wilderness in order to attack the people of Israel. A similar expression is used there. Asher, Korcho, Badarek, who encountered you on the way. Deuteronomy 15:18. At first glance, there seems to be hardly any connection between the two verses, apart from the fact that the same verb appears in them both, albeit in different forms. An additional piece of information makes the connection clearer. Haman was a direct descendant of Amalek, the aggressive nation which rushed out to attack the Jewish people in the desert. The sages tell us that Haman was Amalek's descendant, not only in the physical sense, he also embraced his predecessor's philosophy of life, typified by the expression karahu, from the root kara, happen, which we find both in Deuteronomy and the Megillah. Now, another aside is, what is a Megillah? Pilot, a Megillah is a scroll containing a specific book of the Hebrew Bible. The term Megillah is most commonly associated with the Book of Esther, which is read during the Jewish festival of Purim. There are 5 Megillot, which is the plural of Megillah, in the Hebrew Bible. 1 Esther, read during Purim. 2 Ruth, read during Shavuot. 3 Lamentations, read during Tisha B'Av. 4 Ecclesiastes, read during Sukkot. 5 Song of Songs, read during Passover. Each Megillah is read aloud in the synagogue during its respective holiday, and they hold significant cultural and religious importance in Jewish tradition. Okay, now we know what a Megillah is, so let me continue with the article. And Haman, their royal disciple, regarded all life events as accidents of fate. They denied the existence of a creator or a creation. According to their dogma, this world came into being by chance, and all events took place by chance. Theirs was a world without a judge, and therefore without judgment. Good was not rewarded, nor was evil doing punished. Nations prospered or faltered and collapsed, won wars or lost them, all as a result of blind faith. In such a world, there was no reason not to attack the Jews or any other underdog who appeared weak and vulnerable. Assuming as they did that the world just happened to come along into being and that all events were but accidental, there was no need to consider whether their aggression was right or just, or wrong, immoral, or evil. Theirs was the rule of might, not of right. Haman was determined to prove that his world outlook was right and that those who believed in a supreme power and judge were sorely mistaken. Amalek had no need of conscience or constitutions. The only yardstick by which he measured life was by weighing what personal pleasure or satisfaction he could get out of it. This was Amalek's contribution to the world. They were the first culture to preach egocentric hedonism. Nowadays, we cannot identify any specific nation as Amalek with absolute certainty, but we have no difficulty locating the spiritual heirs of Amalek's philosophy of life. Excuse me. At the time of the Exodus, the Most High performed miracle after miracle before the eyes of the Jews and the Egyptians. On a wider scale, there were supernatural events all over the globe, with the intention that the Gentiles also had the philosophy to observe the Most High's might and abandon their idol worship. The Bible tells us nations heard and shuddered. Terror grasped those who dwell in Philistia. Exodus 15:14. Only one nation did not tremble at the supernatural events taking place, Amalek, who on principle attributed everything to coincidence and happenstance. Unlike the others, Amalek refused to acknowledge any trace of divine intervention. Given that, according to Amalek, it was all fate and coincidence, what was there to fear? And if there is nothing to fear, why not attack? In fact, Amalek felt compelled to attack, lest the nascent Israel become too powerful and win people over to their belief in the Creator. Okay, now it's a pretty long article, but I'm gonna stop, so I'm gonna stop it here. But I did show you where you can find this article because it is very interesting and it does explain the hostility between Haman and Mordecai. So now let me read for you Esther chapter 5. To pass on the third day, that Esther put on her royal apparel and stood in the inner court of the king's house, over against the king's house. And the king sat upon his royal throne in the royal house, over against the gate of the house. And it was so, when the king saw Esther the queen standing in the court, that she obtained favor in his sight. And the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. So Esther drew near and touched the top of his scepter. Then said the king unto her, What wilt thou, Queen Esther, and what is thy request? It shall be given thee to the half of the kingdom. And Esther answered, If it seem good unto the king, let the king and Haman come this day unto the banquet that I have prepared for him. Then the king said, Cause Haman to make haste, that he may do as Esther hath said. So the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther had prepared. And the king said unto Esther at the banquet of wine, What is thy petition? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request? Even to the half of the kingdom it shall be performed. Then answered Esther and said, My petition and my request is, if I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it please the king to grant my petition, and to perform my request, let the king and Haman come to the banquet that I shall prepare for them, and I will do tomorrow as the king hath said. Then went Haman forth that day joyful, and with a glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he stood not up, nor moved for him, he was full of indignation against Mordecai. Nevertheless, Haman refrained himself, and when he came home, he sent and called for his friends, and Zeresh his wife. And Haman told them of the glory of his riches, and the multitude of his children, and all the things wherein the king had promoted him, and how he had advanced him above the princes and servants of the king. Haman said, moreover, yea, Esther the queen did let no man come in with the king unto the banquet that she had prepared but myself, and tomorrow am I invited unto her also with the king. Yet all this availeth me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate. Then said Zeresh's wife and all his friends unto him, let a gallows be made of 50 cubits high, and tomorrow speak thou unto the king that Mordecai may be hanged thereon. Then go thou in merrily with the king unto the banquet. And the thing pleased Haman, and he caused the gallows to be made. Now you notice here that the same way Esther had to ask the king before she could be allowed in, pretty much so did Zeresh. She had to call for Zeresh. Um, yeah, that's verse 10. Haman refrained himself, and when he came home, he sent and called for his friends and Zeresh's wife. She's mentioned after the friends. Here, she's mentioned before the friends, but either way, I think this Book of Esther is showing you that women, the only thing you really got out of marriage, as far as I can see, was a especially being the queen, was you got a nice wardrobe, but you could be forced to take it off, or you might be banished or something. That is not the major point, but I often like to look at the smaller points because they're put there for a reason. um, it is something that you ought to know also. And I think what it's telling you is that no matter how kind-hearted men on an individual basis may be, uh, the setup since the garden has given them certain privileges over women. However, that was not how the Savior treated women, and as such, I think under his kingdom, that is the only place you're going to find your true freedom. But I hope you enjoyed this reading and that it did give you some extra information. To me, this has been really eye-opening in that these are not just two men arguing, these are two philosophies. It sounds to me like one is very much like evolution and the other one is like creation. So, you guys think about what you just heard. And if you stay to the end, I truly appreciate you. I'm giving you a virtual hug right now. And if you have any questions or concerns, please leave them in the comment section. I'll be more than happy to address anything that you put in. But I said in yesterday's video or the day before, I believe very much in kindness. So try to be kind and I will be kind in return. So you guys, please like, share, and subscribe and have a great rest of your day. Oh, have a great Sabbath and make sure you study and rest. So long.